Hi everyone, in today's video I'll be explaining Krea AI's brand new feature called Scene Transfer. This essentially allows you to relight images and even change the scenery, and I've run it across multiple categories from interiors, vehicles, product design, humans and even animals. So I'll be showing you the best use case for it as well as some limitations that you can encounter. So without further ado, let's get started. So in order to access Scene Transfer, all you need to do is click on Enhancer. So now you can drag and drop an image over here to upload it. Once it's been uploaded, on the right hand side over here you'll see that there's an upscaling drop down menu as well as a scene transfer. So I'll be explaining these settings in detail and how to get the best results for your images. So I'm going to be demonstrating this first with a human being, and once you actually adjust these settings it can be carried across multiple categories to get really good results. So what's really important is to make sure that you're running both the upscaling and the scene transfer. By default, upscaling will be active, but you want to make sure that you also go to scene transfer and enable that. So now I want to show you what not to do, what a lot of people will actually do in this case. You can see over here that we have something called scene image, which is great. It allows us to drag and drop an image over here, and it uses it as guidance to change the scenery as well as the lighting. So a lot of people will just drag and drop an image over here. It will upload the image and automatically generate a prompt for us, which we'll see in a moment. Right, so the image has been uploaded and it automatically generates a detailed prompt. And then from here, they leave everything else default and they click on Enhance. So they've clicked on Enhance. Remember, they haven't adjusted any settings in the upscale, and this is the result you get. All right, so my original image turns into this, which means that the background has changed, which is great. The lighting has changed, but so has the person, right? We've lost her likeness, and our owl over here is turned into the strange animal. So I want to show you the settings you need to adjust to get the optimal results. So now to get the best results, go back to upscaling. And what's important over here is that you need to actually type in a prompt. And the prompt needs to describe the main subject matter. In this case, I have an Asian woman holding a white barn owl. So by typing a prompt, I'm giving the image generation some guidance so that it knows what to do with the final image. So that's quite important. You should have some subject matter specified as a prompt. But this is probably the most important setting over here, which is the strength slider. On 0.60, it adds way too much contrast, as you can see over here. And obviously it's altering the face. So I noticed by bringing this on a value all the way down to 0.10, works quite well. And then I also want to put my resemblance all the way up on 1. I'll leave the clarity on 0.25, my presets on default, and a lot of the times I actually like to match the color from the original image. So just to reiterate, strength definitely is the most important slider over here because it's going to determine how much of your likeness actually gets retained. Resemblance works in conjunction with strength, but I have had this value a lot lower as well and hasn't altered the image too much. Clarity, honestly, you can leave this on a default of 0.25 because I've had this value all the way on 1 and even on 0, and the images look exactly the same. So I don't really know what clarity is doing in this case, so you can leave it on default. Preset allows you to try different art styles. I have tried some of these, but I don't need to use them. Default is my go-to and it works perfectly fine. And then of course you have your match color so that you can match the colors from the original image to be applied in your new generated image. So we're not done. We want to make sure we actually take our prompt from upscaling. So I'm going to select everything and just copy that with Control-C. And then we can go back to scene transfer. So having a prompt that describes the background, I've noticed, is not enough. We need to take our prompt from the upscaling and just put it at the front, at the beginning of this prompt. So I'm also describing the subject matter in the scene prompt as well as the prompt in the scene prompt describing the scenery. So with both of them working in conjunction with each other, and leaving the strength slider over here on 0.70 and switch background enabled, I'll click on Enhance and I'll show you the final result. So now just by adjusting those settings, you can see that we've actually retained the likeness, the background has changed, and we still have an owl. But I've noticed I actually get the best results by sometimes not using a scene image, but again, this is dependent on what type of image you're using. Sometimes you can just keep the entire prompt and just get rid of the image itself so that the imagery that's been generated as well as the lighting is going to be 100% dependent on the prompt itself. So I'll click on enhance and show you what that looks like. So these are the exact same settings, there's just no visible scene image, and this is what I end up getting. So this is with an image as guidance, and this is without. And you can see without any image guidance, it still does a really good job by analyzing the prompt and changing the scenery and the lighting. But this is one way to try your best to retain, you know, the scene structure and the likeness in your image, right? You have to make sure both the upscaling and the scene transfer are working in conjunction with each other, that you've got prompts and you've adjusted these settings. So just like I explained the importance of the strength slider in upscaling, if you go to scene transfer, the strength slider in scene transfer also plays a very important role in the final output of your image. And I've put this image together to show you what the strength looks like on different values. So everything else, all of these settings are the same, like how we've adjusted it in the tutorial, but you can see what the strength slider does in scene transfer. So you can see on 0.20, the lighting is still quite the same, except the background is changing. The lighting over here is also still remaining quite similar to the original image, but once you start going to 0.70, we get more of the light changing. You can see the light is being cast on this side of her face, and this is where, you know, the scene transfer and the lighting is really starting to be in full effect. But obviously once you go to a strength of 1, this is where you're going to see, you know, those settings really being applied to your image. And I love all of this rim light that's been cast on the owl from the sun being behind her. It depends on the aesthetic that you're going for. But I did want to visually demonstrate this so that you know how the strength slider can alter the final result of your image. So just to showcase this with other images, here's another one. The exact same settings. I've described the subject matter, and exactly what we did in the video works quite well. But I do want to mention there is a limitation with this, and you'll notice the images I'm using of human beings are all close-ups, right? They're all portraits, and this is where I notice this works well. Once we start moving further away, right, once the face is just further away from the camera, the AI has a much more difficult time trying to, you know, respect all of these settings that we've adjusted. And in this case, like with this person, you can see her face changes. Even though we've set up everything exactly how we did in the tutorial, we're still not getting the best result over here. So with human beings in particular, the further away the face is in an image, the less consistent it's going to be. So you want to use portraits if you want better results, right? I even tried it with this image. You can see as long as there's a close-up shot, it works quite well. So now I want to show you the best use case that I've personally discovered, and that is to use anything that involves vehicles or anything product design related. So with a vehicle like this, I've got an image where I've got a car against a black background, and it doesn't need to be against a black background, which I'll show you in a moment. But just to show you, just like with the human being, the exact same settings have been applied over here. I've specified what's my subject matter, which is the vehicle in this case. And under scene transfer, I'm not using a scene image, but I did put the vehicle at the beginning of the prompt that's going to describe what the background and the lighting should be. In this case, I put my strength all the way up on 1, and this is what it does. An absolutely fantastic job. It basically teleports this vehicle into a completely different environment while applying new lighting on there and scenery, and it looks amazing. And just like I did for the human being, here is the strength slider under scene transfer for vehicles, so you can see how much it actually affects the final image. And just one more thing to mention, which is the switch background, just to show you a comparison when it's enabled and disabled. So in this case, this is the image of this vehicle with switch background enabled, which means that it's going to completely switch out this background and the elements with a completely new environment that pays attention to the scene image and the prompt. All right, that's when switch background is enabled. But if you disable it, right, so over here, this image, it's disabled. It's still bringing in elements of the volcano and the prompt into this image, right? It's like layering it on top of what it has to work with, but it's not as distinct as when you use the switch background. So this is a more subtle approach. And as you reduce the strength value, like if I put it on a value of 0.40, you can see it becomes even more subtle, right? So it depends. This can even be a specific aesthetic that you're going for. But that's how the switch background works. If you want to completely switch out the background or do something more subtle where it can still add in some of those elements, and you control that with the strength slider. So as I stated, the cars don't need to be against black backgrounds. Here's an image of a Ford Raptor that's tearing up this dirt, and you can see under upscaling, same settings. I specified that it's a black Ford Raptor. Under scene transfer, I am using an image as guidance, but the vehicle is at the beginning of the prompt, and everything else is the same. And the result that I get is this. All right, so now we've got a Ford Raptor that's basically driving through lava with erupting volcanoes. Product design is excellent. So here's a picture of a perfume bottle. All right, so if you've got a product that you've shot and you've got it against a simple background, it works excellent. Again, it doesn't need to be against a black background. But like over here, I basically said a luxury perfume bottle in a garden surrounded by beautiful flowers. And if you just put if you put the logo of the perfume bottle over here and a tagline, that looks like an official advertisement for this perfume. And it does really just a fantastic job with product design. You can see I did one in snow. This one's got the rose petals. And I even tried this with a sneaker. All right. So again, same settings. These are the magical settings that are carried across multiple categories. Subject matter. And then scene transfer. I'm using that as guidance. With the prompt, everything else is the same. And yeah, this looks like an official advertisement for this Nike. And you can see over here with the hamburger as well. We've got this delicious hamburger in a field of tulips. Or, like over here, we have a hamburger that's actually on a table. But now I decided to put it in a field with flames. So that would be a flaming hot burger. And you can have so much fun with this once you've got all of these settings enabled. So I was trying this with some of my own photography as well. So I captured this white tiger in Malaysia. And I basically see there's no scene image. I just said it's a white tiger in the snow. The AI worked its magic and transported this white tiger to this white snowy environment. So when this feature works, it works very well. And I love it. I think it's great. I also tested it on an image of some sumo wrestlers that I captured. And I decided to essentially put them in a forest with maple leaves. Now, there is some inconsistencies in the hair over here and the face a bit, but like I mentioned earlier with human beings, the further away a face is in the image, the more inconsistent it tends to be. But still a pretty cool result that it put them in this forest sumo wrestling. So this is an honest review, and I do want to talk about where I think this feature is at its weakest, and that is with interiors. And now I'm assuming because, certain elements in the environment and the scenery are quite far away from the camera, the AI doesn't know how to interpret that or keep it consistent. So here's an image of an interior with the exact same settings. I'm describing the subject matter, and in the scene, I've described I wanted it at sunset. I even reduced the strength over here so that it would try and be as close as possible to what it sees in the image. But interiors are inconsistent, right? Look at how this image changes, right? Now we've got curtains in our scene that weren't there before. Right? The pillars over here, the windows is changing. The outside is also changing quite a bit. The bed is remaining quite consistent as well as the chair. But if you're doing interiors and stuff like this, this is where I think it is at its weakest and very inconsistent. The only time I'd be using something like this for interiors is maybe if I had this as a baseline image and I wanted to create another image during a different time of day that would be my final image. So this would be like guidance in a way. So I'd start with this image and then I'd get this image and this would be my final image. Otherwise, trying to, have consistency with interiors is just, it does not work. Here's another example, right? It's changing everything. And yeah, I found interiors to be at its weakest. And that's why I wanted to demonstrate this. So I did test this with anime and cartoon characters as well, but I don't think it really shines with this type of subject matter. But I did want to show you as well what it can do with anime. So over here, I mean, this example is still quite good. In my opinion, I did put in an animated male character and I did specify, with the prompt over here, and you can see that it's made these animated hand-drawn clouds look a lot more realistic. but it did also relight the scene. You can see that there's some light being cast on his face and even on the jacket over here. I tried it with Spirited Away as well, and it did relight the scene, but it did some strange stuff, especially by adding in a more realistic looking nose. So I don't know if it's the best use case, but experiment with it, right? It also somehow changed the dragon. And I was also experimenting over here by changing the preset, like this one's on oil painting, this one's on digital art. But probably where I saw it basically give me the best result was this image of Mickey Mouse on a white background. So you can see over here with the prompt, it essentially put him on the beach, and this looks pretty good in my opinion. So it looks like cartoon characters against plain white background seems to work quite well, and it can transfer some of the lighting over and change the background. So that's going to be the end of this tutorial, and I do think that this is an amazing feature that Krea AI has released to the public for free, so that's a major plus. And I definitely wanted to highlight some of the strengths and some of its weaknesses as well with its limitations. Hopefully it improves over time, but let's see where it goes. Currently, I still think it's amazing to use, so go out there and use it. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, then feel free to subscribe. And yeah, stay tuned for some more videos and tutorials, and goodbye.